Hey there, knitters. Welcome to episode 34 of Knit Talk with a Tech Editor. I'm Megan of the Unapologetic Knitter, and I'm a tech editor. And today things look a little bit different. I am here with two of my besties. We are taking an annual retreat that we do once a year, and we are just outside of Carmel.
Yes.
In a beautiful home with the ocean behind us, and I wish you could see it. So today I thought we would just have a little fun because this is my regular recording day and talk a little bit about what we're knitting and see if there's any questions with these two that I can help answer for them and help you in the process. So a little backstory. Tammy, do you want to tell everybody how we met?
We met when I was learning how to knit. I took one of Megan's sock classes, and Megan was my teacher.
That's right. When I first moved to Oregon, I was teaching at a local yarn shop, and since socks were my first love, that's what I was teaching. And then we met Becky
At a church mouse yarn and knitting retreat on Bainbridge Island.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So Tammy and I became pretty fast friends at the knitting class, and then we went to the retreat and met Becky and adopted her, for lack of a better term, brought her into the fold, and we've been pretty inseparable ever since. So what are we all knitting on today, gals?
I'm just knitting a simple slouchy hat. It's just at the very beginning here. Just a simple, it's good conversation knitting. So just a simple, make it up as you go slouchy hat.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And Becky?
I am knitting, again, at the beginning.
The sun's behind us.
Yes, exactly. So I'm knitting a cowl. It's a camp style or campfire cowl. It's holding two strands together.
And it's so pretty that she's got one solid yarn and one sort of fading yarn. It looks lovely and extra cozy. Oh, I love that. Ooh, very nice. And we often start a new project when we get together. So I am at the very humble beginnings of the Sophie scarf by Petite Knit. And today is what we call Skajammy Day, which we are all in our pajamas and we sit around and knit all day, and I make spaghetti for dinner and we eat way too much of it.
Yes.
So today's video will be a little bit quicker than they normally are, but I thought it would be fun to keep up with the habit of recording every week. And since this podcast is all about helping knitters on their knitting journey, I thought I would see if either of these two lovely ladies had any questions for me.
I've got one.
Okay.
In helical knitting, how do you decide how to space the stitches? In other words, 3 stitches apart or whatever. How do you decide that?
Ooh, okay. Actually, that's a perfect question. I just got an email from someone about that before we came on this trip. So helical knitting is fairly new to me, as it is to some of you. You guys might remember I did a trio of videos on helical knitting a couple months ago. So the most common thing that I found when I was learning about helical knitting is the spacing is about a 3-stitch spacing. So it's not so much that I've decided that, it's the people who know a lot more about helical knitting than I do.
Okay.
You can adjust it by a stitch here and there to account for maybe if you're cabling and you have a certain width of cables. So you could do sort of 3 stitches is about the average, but if you've got a cable that's 4 stitches wide, you could do 4 stitches. If you've got a little twist that's 2 stitches wide, you could do 2 stitches. Okay. I think the biggest rule of thumb is don't do just 1 stitch. Okay. You want to do more than 2 stitches or 2 stitches or more for your spacing, just to keep that gap from forming like in a really visible, or jog from forming in a visible line.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was kind of nice. That worked out really well. And Tammy, any questions?
Well, I don't really have a technical question.
Okay.
But I was wondering if you have a favorite fiber to work with, or fiber, sport weight, fingering weight, not necessarily brand.
Yeah.
But do you have, if you could only knit with one yarn for the rest of your life?
Okay,
what would that be?
Definitely BFL or Blueface Leicester, I think that's how you say it. I love that it's got kind of a silky quality to it. It has a really soft halo, but it's perfect for stitch definition. And ironically, I say that, and it's actually hard to find in the heavier weights because I love to knit at a DK or a worsted weight. I just think I like those bigger needles, says the woman who loves socks. But yeah, I think definitely BFL. It was one of the first ones that I tried that was not like a superwash merino because that's so accessible, and just felt like it was magic in my hands. And it's been my favorite ever since.
Yay.
Is your favorite needle size still an 8?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yes.
just checking. I haven't checked on it in a while.
Yeah, you know, I think it's because I have always known what my gauge was going to do on an 8. And when I started knitting, I took a class. I shouldn't say when I started knitting. Years after I started knitting, I went to a class and learned a cast on, the long tail cast on. I had only ever done the knitted cast on because I was self-taught. And a woman that was teaching us told me this wonderful tip. If you are using worsted weight yarn on a US 8 needle, your arm span, and I'm going to put my arms around my ladies, your arm span from fingertip to fingertip across your body is generally like the perfect amount of yarn to cast on 80 stitches for a hat. And that has been my basis for how much yarn I leave for casting on stitches for pretty much every project I've ever done.
All right.
Yeah. So that's it.
Very cool.
All right. Well, folks, we're going to keep it short and sweet today. Thank you so much for joining us and having a little bit of fun with us today on our trip. Next week, I received an email and we're going to talk a little bit about yarn substitutions, what I look for in fiber content, weight, all those sorts of things if you're not going to use the yarn that the pattern calls for. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful rest of your week and happy knitting.
Bye-bye.